previous streams, I'll just call him Q, but I'll try to pronounce it once. Kyuketsuki? I'll just call him Q. And looks like the race has started. And the runners are off. So the main goal of a Shovel Knight any percent run is that both runners are going to be collecting as much gold as possible in the beginning to middle stages. And the reason they are doing that is to so they can buy relics that will help speed up their run. Some of them might also be buying health upgrades to make their run a little bit more easier. And what we just saw there was the leap of faith. Looks like Q went a little bit on the safe side, and Newbie just went right for it and nails it. That jump is a little bit on the difficult side. Is one of the only difficult maneuvers of the beginning of the run. So that jump can kill you quite quickly if you don't stop on the platform, and it can give you a death and push you back to the checkpoint. And normally if you die there, runners will just reset the run. And looks like both runners are opting to not do the bubble wrap, which was a new strat that just came out probably around December. Very, very risky strat. Not exactly a difficult strat to pull off, but risky, and if you end up missing it, you can lose a lot of time. So here we go with the first boss against Black Knight. What we'll try to do here is try to stun lock Black Knight. And NotSoNewby having just a little bit of trouble, but did get it in the end. And looking at Q, like he's also having just a little bit of trouble. One more hit, there he goes, and Q got it. Or he defeated Black Knight. So the stun lock against Black Knight, basically what you do is try to use a jump cancel to attack Black Knight really quickly, so that his damage animation, you just hit him repeatedly, so that's all he does. Could be quite a difficult trick to pull off, but it becomes a little bit harder later in the race when we see Black Knight a third time. And one thing I'll mention about the Pridemore Keep, which both runners are at right now, is that the propeller rats that you see on the screen can sometimes cause trouble for runners because they are RNG. While they're not fast, they can sometimes be a little annoying when they're right in front of you or they're about to move and just decide to be right in front of you. But those propeller rats are RNG. However, sometimes they can also help you with good bounces and good RNG. And Q getting a damage boost against the Griffin. Obviously, you can attack that Griffin and kill him, but it is much faster to just take a quick damage by him and just run right past him. And it looks like Newbie is about to take on King Knight. And good kill by Newbie. Oh, it looks like we have a death by Q. Looks like he might have died in the I guess what the fire pit or the library, I guess what some people are calling it. And Q is making his way to the King Knight fight, and Newbie is heading towards, or is in the town to buy the relic. I believe he is going to buy the Chaos Orb. Or the, well, I forget what the actual name for it is. But these orbs are very are very powerful, especially for boss fights. And when we get to a boss fight, he uses them. We'll show, we'll describe how they are so powerful in any percent run. And it looks like Q has finished his King Knight fight. The goal to optimize the King Knight fight as much as possible is to do a couple of shovel cancels on him and then use the ceiling to get in 2, sometimes even 3 extra damage on King Knight to make the fight go as optimally as possible. And it looks like both runners are using the orb route, with Q picking up a music sheet that he will sell to the bard in the town for an extra 500 gold. And Q is also now entering the Lich Yard. Coming up on NotSoNewby's screen, he's about to enter a room where you have to use the skeleton head to make the first platform lower, and he's also got to dodge these annoying little frogs that also produce electricity. And the thing about these frogs is that when they are awake, they are basically RNG and can jump around at any time at many different heights, sometimes crazy and sometimes not so crazy. However, if the frogs are dormant, they will not pester you at all. So that's why you might see a couple of runners ignoring some of the frogs, and then sometimes sometimes they will attack the frogs and destroy them, sometimes they'll just leave them alone. And Newbie playing it safe in the dark room before the boss. I don't blame him. That room can be very scary. Q using the orb on the moving platform so he doesn't have to jump and he avoids the spikes. Let's see how how the Spectre Knight boss fight goes. And good boss fight kill by Newbie. With the Spectre Knight fight, the most difficult thing about the fight is that the first time he throws his blade out, he always appears on the opposite corner of where he transported from. The second time, however, is difficult for a lot of runners because it is RNG where he teleports. It will be on the bottom of wherever he teleports, but it will be a 50-50% chance that's on the left side or the right side. So runners will try to shoot Chaos Orbs or will try to predict where he's at, but it is random. Oh, and a really, really good catch by Newbie. So in the dream sequences, the goal for Shovel Knight, especially in a speedrun, is that it's faster to die in a dream sequence. Now, some of these dream sequences will want to pick up as much gold as possible for relics and health upgrades. But if you saw a Newbie screen, he also died and caught, or no, I don't think he died, but he caught Shield Knight really, really quickly, which saves a couple of seconds. And Newbie opting to not go for the beetle skip. There is a setup where you can use the flashing falcon and have him bounce all the way to the right side of the screen, and you can pogo off of him without having to use the bouncing beetle to navigate through that screen. But Newbie does not go for it. And Q is now entering his dream sequence. As Q is going through the dream sequence, picking up as much gold as possible while also trying to take as many, while also getting damaged as much as possible. Newbie has bought the Dust Knuckles, and the Dust Knuckles do make some things quite a bit faster. What you were able to do with Dust Knuckles is to hit objects and enemies, and you can just go right through them. Nice movement by Newbie there on the platform cycle, and also with the green slime jump there. And also with the Dust Knuckles, you can move through enemies. When you use them, you get a set of iframes, so moving through enemies becomes a little bit easier instead of having to damage boost through them. And Q getting 2 health upgrades in the town. which is a great strat for a lot of beginner runners and even some intermediate runners. Just in case they know for a fact that there's some bosses that still give them difficulty. So having the extra life does help out tremendously at the cost of some time. But if you know you're gonna die during a boss, especially later in the run, getting that health is a great option. Also, great kill by Newbie against the Mole Knight, and he is now heading to the Explodatorium, which this level is very difficult for an any percent speed run. Also, Q opting not to do the Beetle Skip 1, but does get the extra gold underneath the slime platform, which a lot of runners actually forget about, that if you do not do Beetle Skip, there is a lot of extra gold underneath that slime platform, which I recommend everyone getting if you choose not to do Beetle Skip. And you can see Newbie utilizing the Dust Knuckles to get through enemies and the Dust Blocks. Having a little bit of trouble with the pot cycle, which operates on a global cycle. So as soon as the level starts, those pots are shooting up and down, which makes navigating through this level a little difficult. And Newbie is moving on to the Alchemist, who has I believe he has the most health out of any enemy in the game. Not sure why Yacht Club Games decided to do that. Maybe it was to show off both versions of the enemy of the Alchemist, with the Jekyll and Hyde little personality that he has. And Newbie also opting to not do the ladder skip, which is a very smart idea. I have personally died twice, actually, yeah, twice to the ladder skip. And it is a very hard trick to set up. And we see Q going through the area where you can do a second beetle skip in the game, which doesn't save as much time as doing the first beetle skip. He also opted not to break that checkpoint, which is a very safe strategy for him to use. Oh no! And it looks like he just scooted off barely and ended up dying to the lava, which is good. I mean, the death is not good, but it's good that he did not break that checkpoint, because he would have lost a lot of time. Newbie onto fighting Plague Knight, who is not as RNG as what some runners believe him to be. However, later, as the fight goes on, it can get quite chaotic, but you can see him using the orbs to do some extra damage on Plague Knight. And I have a lot of beef with the Plague Knight fight, as he killed me twice in my race, so he is a very difficult boss. Especially if you have no more magic to use. But he does finish off Plague Knight. And we have Q taking on Mole Knight on the other screen. Oh, one more hit away. But he uses the flashing flames that Mole Knight shoots out at you and hits it back for the last point of damage and finishes the fight. So good fight by Q. And back to the other screen, Newbie now getting the Conjurer's Coat and the Charge Slash. So what the Conjurer's Coat does, it is an armor piece that gives you 50 magic, which magic is definitely used to go faster in this game. And with the magic, also comes a cost of taking an extra 0.5 damage. So dying becomes a lot easier. And then the Charge Slash, you can just, what it does is you just hold the attack button and you can do a Charge Slash. And what that does is any enemy that takes damage from it takes a full bar or 2 normal shovel hits. And Newbie about to navigate the technical room. Looks like the orbs did not kill all the tentacles, so he has to go around to the side and pogo and attack those tentacles to clear the room so he can progress. Sometimes if you shoot those orbs a little late, or sometimes if they just decide to be random, they do not clear all the tentacle monsters in that room. So it becomes quite difficult, and it can sometimes not save you any time whatsoever. Oh boy, looks like Q got a little hung up in the Explodatorium there. Wasn't sure what cycle he was on with the mana rays, throwing those exploding potions, and he unfortunately fell to his doom. Very difficult spot to pick gold up with those platforms that have the flames on them. I myself personally knowing what that is like, but he is moving on to the Alchemist, trying to get in as many hits as possible. Now let's see if he can pick his lost gold up elsewhere. Newbie about to enter a large anchor room, opting to get the checkpoint. This room can be very tricky to maneuver, especially with the monster, which I do not remember his name, shooting off the green missile-like objects. And he does take a death there, but he did get the checkpoint, so he does not lose as much time as taking a death there. One thing I had forgotten to mention for any new runners or anyone who had seen Shovel Knight runs, checkpoints are great in this game. You use them. If you die, you go back to them, but they're also you can break them to get extra gold, but they cease being checkpoints. So it is a risk and reward, especially in a speed run, with the checkpoints. Oh no, and Q taking another death to the Slime Shovel Knights. Those Slime Shovel Knights can be very, very tricky. And if you see on a newbie screen, Treasure Knight is one of the fights where the orbs definitely show off how much power they possess, as they can hit Treasure Knight multiple times to cause multiple damage and make that fight quite a bit easier. And Q picking up his gold from his death from earlier. He is moving on to the Plague Knight fight. And Plague Knight giving Q a lot of trouble by just teleporting back and forth. And the orb's not quite going where he wants them to go. Oh no, and Newbie is getting reezed. That's why you see him going back and forth from the outpost. So, Ree's movement on the, I guess the world map is random. And sometimes he can block your path from moving on forward. And sometimes either some runners have to go in it and battle him anyway, which can cost a bit of time, or some runners who are not familiar with taking on Rees will go to the outpost and see if they can't reset his movement on the map, which can sometimes be beneficial. But as you saw, he was not being very cooperative in his run. And it looks like Q took a death to Plague Knight, but doing a lot better in his second round with Plague Knight. Has about 3 hits left, gets his gold, and finishes off Plague Knight. Much better fight the second time around for Q. And Newbie on the screen, that is not a mistake. He is going up so that he can go down and he can pick up arguably, or maybe not so arguably, the best relic in the game in terms of speedrunning, which is the Propeller Dagger. And the Propeller Dagger will boost you forward for I believe, a cost of 6 magic. Or no, sorry, 4 magic. And it is definitely helpful if you want to go fast in this game. And Newbie coming up to the dreaded 3 Jawa room. This room has killed many, many runners in many, many PB attempts, and he navigates it very, very well. Those Jawas are very hard to control or manipulate, and they will blow you off the screen and just cause you to die. It is very unfortunate how many runs have been lost to Jawas. Q coming up to the technical room. And doesn't get quite the perfect orb set it, but still navigates through it very, very nicely. And Newbie is approaching the wind tunnel room, which has also claimed quite a few runs, opting to do the low percent strat, which is way safer than doing strat with the propeller dagger. Q going up onto the 420 fish. The fish is very random in where he positions himself in the screen. And sometimes he is very difficult to hit, especially on the top there. And Q finishes him off quite nicely. He'll probably opt to get the health below the checkpoint. Newbie playing it safe so he doesn't get blown off by Propeller Knight, and finishes off Propeller Knight very nicely. Q opting not to go for that dirt clod skip. It is a difficult skip to accomplish. There is a little dirt clod that you can hit off of the side of one of the rooms back there and grab one of the ladders. But if you miss it, and then ever have to go back to that room because of a death or anything, it won't be there. That is a one-time only trick that you can do. And he navigates the anchor room very, very nicely. And Newbie is currently in the Clockwork Tower. In the Clockwork Tower, it will be the last upgrade that the runners will want to get, and that is the gear, the mobile gear. And we will see why, a little bit later, why that gear is worth getting, as it enables us to ride the gear and skip an auto scroller, and it will also be useful a couple more other times in a run. And Q not getting a great pattern against Treasure Knight, but still finishes them off very nicely. On Newbie screen, we showcase why the gear is useful to get. It allows you to ride things like spikes. As long as you still pay attention though, because sometimes those chompies can attack you and push you off a gear, and if you're riding on spikes, that's pretty much a death right there. Newbie continuing on very nicely, about to enter a second auto-scroller room, while Q is navigating through another dream sequence, picking up as much gold as possible so that he can perhaps buy the Conjurer's Coat, the Charge Slash, and eventually the Propeller Dagger, which will all cost a grand total of 12,000 gold. And also opting to get another meal ticket, the second meal ticket that the game gives you during the dream sequences. And Newbie coming up on the first part of the Tinker Knight fight. In an any percent route, it's very easy, especially if you have the mobile gear. You can just take Tinker Knight out in one hit with the mobile gear. Q getting the extra music notes so that he can sell those to the Maestro. I believe he'll pick up 1,000 extra gold. Looks like Q is opting to not get the Conjurer's Coat, I believe, which is, I think, smart if you are not confident with going forward in the route, just because of all that extra damage that you eventually will take. Newbie getting that little skip by hitting the ant up in the air and then pogoing off of him, so you don't have to navigate around the platforms in that very first Polar Knight stage. The Polar Knight stage can be very tricky. There are a couple of damage boosts that you need to do, and if you have the Conjurer's Coat and take any unwanted damage, those tricks can be very difficult to pull off. And there are not a lot of health upgrades, or not health upgrades, but there are not a lot of health opportunities in the Polar Knight stage. Or at least any that are easy to get via speedrun. But Newbie navigating very well throughout the route. Takes a damage there to the little Viking dude who throws arrows. So he's going to probably play it just a little bit on the safe side. Meanwhile, Q having some trouble with the Jawa there. Those Jawas are very annoying. Especially in a speedrun. Very scary room for Newbie as he navigates through the big canyon there with the Hammer Bros dropping hammers and you having to navigate across with the Rainbow Bridge, which every time you hit it, it builds a road for you to cross, which disappears after a certain amount of time. And if you get hit by one of those hammers, it knocks you back, and at that point, it'll be very hard to recover. So normally runners will die there. Newbie navigating it pretty well, and is about to another spot where you can use the gear to navigate the spikes, which saves quite a bit of time. Q also getting the propeller dagger, which means he will go fast. He will make Shovel Knight go fast. Very, very good kill on Polar Knight by Newbie. Polar Knight can create spikes on the ground, which obviously, if you step on them, that's instant death. So what a lot of runners try to do is they take damage by getting hit by Polar Knight so that they can cross the spikes and just get as much damage on Polar Knight as much as possible. And Q took a death in the dreaded Jawa room. Got stuck between all three Jawas and became a Shovel Knight Jawa sandwich. But he gets the checkpoint there, so it's not a significant time loss. And he navigates it through on the second try. So those Jawas have claimed many runners during this tournament alone. And Newbie is currently going to the Tower 1 stage. Movement-wise in the tower stage, especially using the propeller dagger, there's not a whole lot of difficult maneuvers, but there are a couple of areas where if you slip up just a little bit, it can be pretty costly. And Newbie opting to not use the gear to jump up onto that platform and gets good propeller rat RNG, so you can just pogo up and skip part of that room. And Q approaching the wind tunnel area, while Newbie is in the crusher part of Tower 1. Oof. Q making my heart stop there. Almost looked like he was about to fall off, but the wind tunnel catches him, and he progresses through very nicely in the wind tunnel portion of the Propeller Knight stage. Newbie using a little skip there, make the Chompy appear, and you can pogo off of him and skip a portion of that area. He needs to be careful about his health. Very smartly decides to pogo the Chompy on his left, so he doesn't take any extra unwanted damage from him. Q having just a little bit of difficulty against the Propeller Knight fight, but it looks like he's going to finish him off. That's another instance where if the boss battle gets progressively harder if you don't finish off the boss quickly enough. And trying to defeat a boss, especially in a hurry, becomes very difficult. But Q able to do it very nicely. And Newbie is now approaching Enchantress, or not the Enchantress, but the third Black Knight fight, or the second of the speed run. And Newbie not able to get the stun lock, which is a very difficult stun lock to get in this fight, as opposed to the first time you fight Black Knight, or the second time you fight Black Knight. Oh no, a Newbie takes a death to Black Knight. Very, very unfortunate. He will be able to go back and attempt the stun lock again if he chooses to. The Black Knight 3 fight can be very, very difficult, especially the more damaging objects appear on the screen. But he gets Black Knight. Oh no. He was about to attack Black Knight with the continuous charge slashes, but he forgot about the meteors, and the meteors hit him, and he took a second death. Meanwhile, Q is approaching the mobile gear and has plenty of gold to purchase the mobile gear. And Newbie getting some stun lock attacks against the Black Knight. And he finishes off the Black Knight. Very, very, very good third attempt by Newbie. The room that Q is currently in can be a little difficult because you have to watch out for these RNG sign daggers, which appear on the left and right side of the room. And sometimes they can be a bit trolly to runners by appearing at the last second in those rooms. But Q navigating it very well. And again, riding the mobile gear to skip a portion of the auto-scroller. And Newbie progressing through the second tower stage, coming up to the ice block and slime room. Very tricky room to navigate because those slimes, oh, and he takes a death. Very tricky room to navigate. if you don't navigate that room quickly with the Dust Knuckles, these slimes can gang up on you. Some of them are fire slimes, which you cannot pogo those enemies. So if you don't go through that room quickly, those slimes can pile up on you without a moment's notice. Ah, and he takes another death in the exact same spot. Let's see if he can get through it a third time. Meanwhile, Q navigating the second auto-scroller room and about to take on Tinker Knight. And Newbie does get through the slime room. Had to watch his health a third time. And good kill by Q, and not taking I believe he got a feat from the game. So congrats to Q for getting the untouched feat, which I believe is taking no damage during a boss fight. Newbie is now navigating the auto-scroller of the Tower 2 room. Which can be a very tricky and dangerous room to navigate, especially if you don't have full health. Because those exploding rats can kind of edge a head off of you if you aren't careful. And Q navigating... oh no, he was navigating the Polar Room, or the Polar Night stage. And decided to do a propeller dagger, and he got knocked back and went to the side for a death. Sometimes if you're a little slow on inputs, or you accidentally input a propeller dagger when you don't mean to, it will knock you back and push you off to the side. And he takes another death there on the exact same spot. Meanwhile, Newbie is going through the boss rush of the game, where you take on all the bosses from the game, with the exception of Black Knight. The trick to the boss rush is to taking not a whole lot of damage and beating the bosses as fast as possible. And in between each fight, you do get health and some magic replenishment. Newbie taking a death to the Polar Knight fight, though, which means you have to start from the beginning of the boss rush. So thankfully it was early in the boss rush, so he doesn't lose a lot of time. Taking deaths later in the boss rush, though, that's when you can lose quite a bit of time. And he gets hit by the bomb and takes another death to boss rush. But again, these are early boss rush deaths, so in terms of time loss, he's not losing a whole lot. But they can add up after a while. Also, something I forgot to mention is that the Polar Knight fight will always be one of the first 3 fights in boss rush. I believe the explanation I heard Yacht Club Games for doing that was because they did not want players to get discouraged to get the Polar Knight fight last, and then do so well against him just to have full health and die to him on spikes. So they tried to minimize that frustration as much as possible. Or at least I believe that's the explanation I heard from it. Q taking the safer route by hitting, or by jumping up on the Rainbow Bridge and deciding to use that bridge to destroy the Hammer Bros. A very safe strat that does not waste a whole lot of time. And Newbie is progressing through the boss rush. 4 more bosses to go. Trying to get as many hits as possible when Mole Knight swings by. Oh, and Q taking a hit from the from, I guess, the Ice Magician. I'm sure he's got a proper name, but that's the only thing I can think of for right now. But he navigated through the spike room even without the gear. And he goes on the Polar Knight. Newbie taking another death to the boss rush, which I can understand is very infuriating, especially when you do so well against many of the bosses. Q with a very quick kill against Polar Knight. Very nice fight. Again, using the orbs to rack up the damage against the bosses. Those orbs are very, very, very powerful relics. And are great for speedrunning. And Newbie with the Plague Knight fight now in the boss rush. Oh no, and but he takes the very, very interesting. He took a death to Plague Knight, but then Plague Knight ran into one of his orbs. So, and with the boss rush, even if you die, if you are able to finish off the boss, you will have half a health left. So, Newbie getting a very, very big break in the boss rush. Very fortunate that Plague Knight decided to run into one of his orbs. Another reason why the orbs are very, very good relic to have. And Q going back to the town. I think he wants to get as much health as possible so he can go through boss rush very, very safely, which I do not blame. Because taking deaths in the boss rush, especially multiple deaths, can rack up the time. And you also see Q taking the catapults. Obviously, it becomes a lot harder to navigate through the map with the bosses appearing on the map overworld. So using the... Oh no! He was using the catapults to progress through the map without having to worry about the bosses. And Newbie takes another death right as he's about to get the health. So we'll have to go through boss rush yet again. Chat, I think Newbie needs some encouragement. So post what all encouraging words you need to help him get through this boss rush. And he takes down Polar Knight. And as you can see, Q, nothing is wrong with his screen or anything. He is trying to position the propeller rat so that he can pogo off of him and skip a portion of that screen. As I mentioned before, sometimes those propeller rats can give you really bad RNG and be not helpful whatsoever. Yeah, Newbie playing it safe right now. Very smart to wait, and he Spectre Knight can summon those skeletons out, and decides to pogo one and destroy one. So if he would have gotten hit by that skeleton, that would have been another death. So smart playing by Newbie to take it very safe. Newbie finishes off Treasure Knight. And now onto Plague Knight. Gonna have to be very careful. Oh, and he takes another death to Plague Knight. And Plague Knight can be an infuriating boss, especially on boss rush. Especially if you have used up all your magic already. That's one of the key difficulties to the boss rush is not just not dying, but also magic management. Because sometimes you don't want to use too many relics on one boss, because then the next boss might be more difficult, and if you don't have any magic, it will make that boss fight very, very difficult. Like a Tinker Knight, having no magic on a Tinker Knight fight, Plague Knight fight, a Treasure Knight fight, or even a Polar Knight, not so bad. He's having a much better time with Plague Knight here. Still has to watch his health though. And he does get Plague Knight. Very, very, very close fight. Q moving on to the Black Knight 3 fight. Let's see how he decides to handle this. He is going the propeller dagger route, which is a very safe strat, but he still doesn't hit him in time. Before Black Knight starts teleporting away and shooting off the pink orbs, but he has a lot of health. So he won't necessarily have to worry about dying in this fight. And another option, if you can't do the stun lock against Black Knight, is to, when he starts flying, to pogo on top of him when he gets low enough, and to just sit there and pogo consistently on top of him. The problem then becomes is that sometimes you have to watch out the meteors he summons, because sometimes they will hit you and knock you off. And Q finishing off Black Knight very, very well. Especially with all the different phases that Black Knight conjures up that make that fight way more difficult. And Newbie progressing to the Tinker Knight fight. Two more bosses left for Newbie, King Knight and Propeller Knight. And you can tell by the comparison of the two runners that taking a death to the boss rush, or even multiple deaths to the boss rush, as Q has now caught up to the same level that Newbie is on. So those boss rush deaths do take a hit. And I think Newbie needs to play it safe here. He's got 2 more hits. And he finishes boss rush and takes down Propeller Knight. Very difficult boss rush for Newbie, but he gets through it. And I've been in that position before, and it is very infuriating to take all those deaths to boss rush. And he speeds on and progresses to the last stage of the game. Meanwhile, Q navigating through with the Rainbow Bridge, trying to dodge the Jawas, which also can cause a lot of trouble for the runners, and dodges them very nicely. And Newbie moving on to the first part of the last stage of the game, where the floor tiles will come up and attack you. Very can be a very scary stage. There is a lot of runners. Sometimes will take a death there if they get hit and knocked back into the fire, which obviously is something you don't want to do, because you have to go through and do that room over again. And also another portion where using the mobile gear works out well in the room before the checkpoint, as you can, after navigating all those chasms, you can then ride the gear to speed up your progress before the checkpoint room. And Q is now approaching boss rush. So he has a bigger advantage than Newbie, because he does not have the Conjurer's Coat, and he has 9 health, which will make boss rush vastly easier. And Newbie taking a death to Enchantress. So Enchantress can be very difficult. There is a quick kill on her, but it is very precise, and sometimes she cannot cooperate. And then getting damage while she is in the bottom. You see Newbie shooting off orbs to try to get a few hits in. There is a way, which I am not very good at, where you can, while she is down below the platform, where you can get between her and the bottom of the platform and do some damage to her, but you don't want to do that until she has about like maybe 3 or 4 hits left. I know some other runners will do it with 4 hits left, but in the end, Newbie does take on, or does defeat the Enchantress fight. So time will be coming up for Newbie. He's got 1 more fight left, and that is against the second Enchantress. I believe the Remnant of Fate is what they call her. And you can see Newbie opting to not have anything to do with those shots that she has been fired. Using the Propeller Dagger to get extra hits. Oh man, one more hit left. See if he can dodge all these shots, and he does. And Newbie finishes the race with a 1 hour, 4 minute, and 33 seconds. So, GG by Newbie. And Q is navigating through Boss Rush. Has two more. There he goes. Has 3 more bosses to go through. And again, he has such a bigger advantage than Newbie did with having the 5 additional health and not having the Conjurer's Coat. At the same time, though, he does not have as much magic to use. Well, actually, he might, because I forgot he got the magic upgrades. And playing it a little passively against Plague Knight. And he takes out Plague Knight. It's one thing that you never want to see Plague Knight do is get up in the air like that, because sometimes he'll be very difficult to damage as he is throwing those exploding bombs at you. Oh, jeez. And Mole Knight, this is a portion of the fight that you don't typically see, but when he has those 4 different versions, you have to dig the correct version up. The rest of them are fakes, and very unfortunate that the real version of Mole Knight was way over on the left, on the opposite side of where Q was standing. But he still progresses through the fight and has just Tinker Knight left. And he finishes Boss Rush with no problems. Let's see if he opts to save anybody. I believe he is shooting for a specific PB, so I don't think he will. Oh, he saves King Knight like a true gentleman. I believe that's something, somewhat of a tradition, is if King Knight is the first one, or if he's the first boss, we opt to save him first, no matter what. I could be wrong on that tradition, though. And Q opting to play it safe, maybe not too familiar with those floor panels and where they show up. Very smart idea. And then uses the gear to progress through the rest of the Enchantress's castle. Q opting to play it very safe against the Enchantress, so he doesn't fall off. Or fall off any of the platforms that the Enchantress decides to destroy. Getting a little bit unlucky there. Getting stuck in the left corner. Using those Chaos Orbs to get any extra damage on the Enchantress, which is very smart. She's about 3 hits away, 1 hit away. And he nails it. And let's see how Q does on the last fight for the Enchantress. So it looks like he will also prefer to use the Propeller Dagger strat to take out Enchantress. Getting a couple of extra bops in there. Gets 3 extra bops. That's actually can be very difficult to do if you don't know which direction she's going in. And time for Q. Let's see. That actually might be a...
It's not.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, mine was a 108. I had
Okay.
absolute terrible first half.
Ah, so I couldn't tell. You were really close to getting a PB?
I know. That's because I had a decent second half, but my first half was so bad that I couldn't come back from it.
Yeah. But still, though, good attempt. Very, very close to getting a PB. And I believe Newbie also here in the chat.
Yo.
So, man, let me tell you, that boss rush, that can kill you.
Yeah, it's a problem right now.
Yeah, I didn't want it. That was the big issue, man. I could have had it. I just didn't want it. My first half was so bad.
Yeah. By the way, we are joined here with NotSoNewby, and you're going to have to pronounce your name for me. I call you Q all the time.
Kyuketsuki, it's fine.
Okay. Kyuketsuki.
No, just Q. Q's fine.
Just Q. Okay, we'll just go with Q. But yeah, boss rush, it can be a pain with not having a lot of magic or using all your magic and having not a lot of health.
Yeah, I'm also like not experienced with doing it without extra health upgrades because I've only done a couple runs now where I decided to go full out no health upgrades and all that stuff, so It's a bit tricky for now, but I'll get into it.
Right.
So where was I at? Because I thought it was starting Tower like 2 when I was in Prob Night stage.
Let's see. I believe he finished boss rush right when you got to the second tower stage.
I mean, at that point, I was still catching time, but I was still about 5 minutes behind my PB going out of Tower 2.
Yes, correct. So, I mean, yeah, you were catching up. I was going to say and mention the point that if Newbie took another death, that it was going to become another pretty close race, actually. But he did progress through it.
Yeah.
So, trust me, I've been there. In my race, like... I kept dying to boss rush 2, and it was infuriating.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, come on, guys. Sometimes.
All I know is I was very glad I didn't forfeit because I was basically having a heyday with myself emotionally after Plague.
Yeah.
Dying to Plague for the first time in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there as well. Definitely recently, and but you guys both kept a cool head throughout the run, so good for you guys.
Thanks.
And let's see, I'm not quite sure what else is happening today. I don't know if there's any other speed runs going on. I believe that's it for Shovel Knight runs today, correct?
Yep. Next is Mega Man 3.
All right. Next is Mega Man 3.
3? Is it 3 or 2?
Is it 3? I believe it's 3. Feasel with the helpful information. Yeah. Hello, Feasel.
There's a couple Mega Man 3 races coming up today, and then I'd have to look at the schedule for anything else.
Awesome. Well, anything else from you guys? Anything else? Any other comments?
Good luck in the next round, newbie.
Thanks, man.
The better person definitely advanced, so.
What's that?
The better person definitely advanced, so.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Good race anyway, yeah.
Let's see, I don't know. Let's see, I'm trying to check the schedule for the Shovel Knight. I don't quite remember when the next match will be. Currently trying to look it up. I believe there is a match tomorrow. Pulling up the screen now. Nope, I don't have anything listed. So we'll keep everyone posted on the on when the next match is, for sure.
Cool.
All right. Well, I believe that is it for us. Get ready for some Mega Man 3 matches.
See you guys.
Yep. Take it easy.
Bye.